Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and if you are interested in listening to idiots, you came to the right place. Have a nice day.
Woo! That's an attention getter.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot.
What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
You know, of course, that you're out of your jurisdiction.
Personally, I think you're an idiot.
But that's the evidence in the car.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Always like to keep my audience riveted.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, and welcome to Free Range Idiocy, the podcast about everything, but mostly just the stuff we like. Ever since there has been music, people have been singing each other's songs. Sometimes it's a loving tribute, other times it's a disaster, and a lot of the time it's fairly inoffensive if lazy ripoffs. Occasionally, though, the music gods deliver unto us a new version of a song that takes us to a new place in our minds and hearts, all in the span of about 4 to 5 minutes. Well, we've taken on the task of delving into the depths of our musical knowledge and sharing our favorite cover songs with you, the listeners. In this episode 190, Best in the World Covers, I am your Uncle Todd, and with me, as always, is the man who owns a fine collection of Geddy Lee busted bass strings. He has been my partner in Idiocy for over 2 decades and will more than likely have a restraining order against him at some point in the near future. I give you the man they call Tim.
Greetings and salutations, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yourself, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm surprised you didn't say this was for the people.
You know, as soon as I got past that part, I realized I had missed that opportunity.
You missed the Mario Bane opportunity, sir.
I was born into the game.
The people.
The people. Yeah. Things are just right as rain here in beautiful Maine.
That means something's going on you didn't want to talk about.
Yeah, just we actually got a little bit of snow, so that was kind of nice. I don't know about you, but like if it's going to be like butt-chapping cold, I'd at least like to have some snow rather than just bare ground that just shows how dead everything is, you know? Yeah. That's just me, though.
I would agree. We had some snow overnight, and it wasn't a lot. It was like maybe a half inch, if anything. Mm-hmm. But man, on top of everything else, like we got like maybe an inch a couple days ago. So I mean, it's just like stuff's compounding. And I drive a Honda Fit. It is a go-kart, and let me tell you, when the roads are covered with a nice layer of snow like that, it's always fun when you're trying to keep the car from not going on a diagonal as you're trying to take off. You know, it's like
you don't like driving through your side window.
Kind of. I mean, it's a little hey. But thankfully, most of my commute to the office today was via train and not via car. So
no scooter.
No, I have not.
You don't have some snow tires for that bad boy? Some winter studs on it?
I need to get the tires with the studs.
Maybe I get some chains.
That's right. You can do that too.
You make it to the end of your block. That's what happened. The battery would be just dead.
Yeah, basically. By the way, I got to do surgery on one of those scooters. We got my oldest one for their birthday, and something happened with the motor controller like within the first like week of using it. It was just ridiculous. And so I actually got the parts.
Grown ass people shouldn't be using a scooter. That's why.
Stop it. It is a valid mode of transportation.
Valid if you're like 10 years old going to buy
get you
baseball
from
cards at the corner
to
store.
There and everywhere. Well, anyways, over the holidays I looked it up online and actually got sent a question to their support, got a nice YouTube clip. I'm watching it, and I have got to pull like the entire back wheel chassis off to get like I basically have to get into the deck of the scooter to pull this piece out. Then I have to wire it all up correctly, put it back in. It's going to be a miracle if I don't start a fire by doing this. So
this, ladies and gentlemen, is reason 183 of why you don't ride a scooter.
Stop it.
After
it's
a
glorious
age.
It's glorious.
That's dumb as hell. Anywho, we are going to get into our favorite cover songs a little bit later on, but not before we get into the minutia of entertainment geekery and other such ballyhoo and nonsense in this episodes a week in Geek.
It's right here, Ray. It's looking at me.
Venkman always gets me with that one.
He does.
I feel so funky.
Yes, we do. We feel very funky. Well, we're going to start off with an in-house Week in Geek item because I would like an accounting. I would like a narrative, if you will, from Uncle Todd on his finally returning to the Whittemore Center, ladies and gentlemen. This past Friday night, he and his gang of ne'er-do-wells invaded
Not that far
the
from
Whittemore Center in Durham, New Hampshire, and then proceeded to the local bars in Portsmouth to render them without liquor or beer.
I mean, it was on the list of things to do. What do you want me? I mean,
What do you want for nothing? Rubber biscuit?
bow, bow, ooh.
So how was it, sir? Once again, playing the sax and
Well, let's just
creating
get this
some
right out of the
tunes.
way. UNH lost 4-1, so that kind of sucked. That part was.
You
But,
gotta start with the
I just wanna-
vibe-killing
I wanna
news. Come
get
on.
that out the way. You know, it was a good time. So went down there and managed to skate in right at the meet time. Hadn't been inside the WIT for years, and it's kind of crazy that the updates that have been done, modernization, if you will. And so that was a lot of fun. It's also kind of cool how the band is now part of the student section as opposed to being across the arena, like as far away from. And although I do remember, have fond memories of where we used to sit in the Whittemore Center, because it was the section right next to where they would sell all the opposing team tickets.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one section that was available for whoever was visiting. That was always fun. Almost getting into a fight every game.
You're stupid. No, you're stupid.
With more colorful language.
Well, yes. I was trying to do the family version of the back and forth.
But that was, it was nice to be in the student section, even though there wasn't a ton of students there, being, winter break, which is why they pulled in schlubs like us to come in and pull up the slack.
This version of the Replacements?
Kind of. I wanted to be Danny Bateman, but not so much. I was more like the kicker.
Oh boy.
And he's wiredy. So got in there and got set up. I had actually taken my saxophone out of the case for the first time in quite a long time the day before, and was very pleasantly surprised that the sound came out of it and that it was actually somewhat in tune.
Did any moths or other larvae take off as you pulled it out of?
No, it was also pleasantly surprised it was in playable condition.
Wow.
I did throw out the reed that had been sitting in the reed case.
I was going to ask, was there a new reed?
Don't know how long that bad boy's in. That's got to go.
It's probably got some fungus on it.
Luckily, so this is the other thing. Now the because our friend Casey, who I actually went to school with, she's now the head of athletic band. So she heads up the marching band and also the band that plays at hockey games, basketball games, things like that. She has done a great job modernizing the bands, and
Nice.
Is now very much up into all the new modern technology. So all the music is on an app that you can pull up on your phone, and you can get the little stand that goes, the little phone holder that goes on your instrument and all that. Luckily, my friend Ken was like, "Hey, can I bring an iPad, because my eyes are not going to work with a phone?" And I was so glad that he did, because I read off of his iPad, and neither of us would have had a chance trying to read a phone like right here. It would have been like a disaster. As it was, I could barely like. It's like, not only has it been a long time since I played saxophone, it's been a long ass time since I read sheet music. Because even when I was in a band playing saxophone, I didn't read the sheet music. I was figuring out the part on my own and just memorizing it. I never wrote anything down. So, I mean, it's been a couple decades since I sat down and tried to play music off of a staff. And that was interesting in itself. Like, at one point I had to turn to Ken. I'm like, "What's that note?" He's like, "That's a high C." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I was like, I'm okay when it's down here in the staff. When it gets up there,
he's
I
basically
lose track.
like Johnny Cash's guitarist in from Walk the Line when he starts playing. I forget the song he starts. So, what is it? Blues.
Folsom Prison Blues.
Folsom Prison Blues, and because I love that part in the movie where the bass player and the guitarist, like the bass player starting to play, and you can just see the guitarist. He's like mouthing like G, A.
Yeah. Which happens a lot more often than you would think. Or you have a guitar player who just kind of looks over at the bass player and is like, can tell by where your fingers are in the fretboard, like, all right, I think we're in C. Okay. That's always fun. But no, it was a lot of fun playing, and it was good to know that I could actually remember the UNH fight song. It actually just came to me as I was playing because I lost track of where I was in the music, and it has since been rearranged since when I first learned it. So the saxophone part is different, but I lost place, and all of a sudden I just started playing the old version. I'm like, hey, that was somewhere in there. That's kind of cool. Like not all of not all the brain cells are dead.
Not yet, at least.
But so that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Got to hang out with some, there wasn't a whole lot of folks that, were of our vintage. But there was 4 of us plus Casey. So it was kind of cool. And then afterwards, unfortunately, we were really hoping for a UNH victory. It did not happen. It was one of those nights when you're watching a team and within the first period, it's like, this is just not going to go our way.
Oh dear.
Like, there was so many times just in that first period where I'm like, if we just had somebody in place for one of these rebounds off of this shot, like it would be 4-0, and then just the refs were not doing any favors and all this stuff. It was like, this is just not happening. It's like playing a video game where the AI just decided like, nope, you're losing this game. So that kind of stunk, but then we all kind of regrouped and decided, well, might as well make the best of this. Where's the bar? And headed over to Portsmouth and hit up the Rusty Hammer and proceeded to close that bad boy down. Although your claims of us drinking the town out of liquor, very far from the truth, because 1, we old, and 2, the wait staff was, I think, on a very diminished schedule. So it was we were seeing a member of the wait staff maybe once an hour. So
oh boy,
which is probably good. It was probably very good, because otherwise things could have gotten out of hand. But that was good. But overall, that was great, and I ended up staying down there for the night, and then hit the Friendly Toast for a fine breakfast, and drove home in amongst the flurries that were happening. So it was quite lovely.
Phenomenal. And I have to ask, was Uncle Todd able to get a little mic time at the Whittemore?
Hell no. Are you kidding?
Come on.
Yeah, they've got security and stuff.
You've got an in with the director. She couldn't give you 30 seconds with the mic to cut a promo?
She doesn't have a mic.
I don't know. Well, she's got to have some access to the sound system. How is the sound projected?
It's called musical instruments, sir. It's all acoustic. It's drums and brass. And
they don't mic you up at all?
No, you don't need it.
Oh, okay, that's a shame. I was just thinking you just take a mic off the saxophone and be fine.
No, that's not how that works.
Well, that's unfortunate. I think it would have been a fine scene had you done that, and at least you could have got this show's name out there a little bit as well as your own moniker.
Yeah, it was still fun.
At least you trod where Austin and Rock once trod.
I was actually thinking about that as I was in there, just looking around going, I don't know how the hell you set this up. Like it had to have been tiny in there. The other thing that was amazing was, so I met up my friend Ken downtown for a bite to eat before the game, and decided, I'm not gonna bother trying to find parking downtown or pay for parking downtown. I'm like, I'm gonna park in the lot by the hockey arena, and I'll walk downtown, and then he'll give me a ride back there, and I'll stop by my car on the way past, because he's gonna have to park in the same lot.
Right.
Who the hell added 3/4 to a full mile between that lot and downtown since I've been in college?
Oh boy,
that was a long ass walk. I was like, I used to do this multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
And it was freaking cold too. That was the other thing.
Got the lungs of a 4-year-old.
Or an avid smoker or something. I don't know what it was, but it was a long way. That's all I'm going to say. But no, a lot of fun, great time.
Nice.
Always good to head back down there and see how things have changed and how things have not changed.
Yes. Very nice. Very nice. Well, cheers to you, sir, on your triumphant return to our collective old stomping grounds.
Mm-hmm.
And glad to see you didn't burn the place down in the process. So
it was a narrow escape.
But before we get to our next item, I do have a Tales from the Fantasy Gridiron update I need to give. No, I'm kidding. I was contemplating.
What, you somehow lost?
No, I was going to say.
Then we don't want to hear it.
Yahoo invited me to comment on my Cinderella story, 8th place to 1st place triumphant run. But I decided against it because I'm probably going to cause that vein in Uncle Todd's head to continue to angle out there a little bit. So I'll just move on to our next item, which will be less stressful for. Are you pointing somewhere, sir?
Sorry.
Stage right, stage left.
Had some tendonitis lately.
Yeah, sounds like it. Seems like it. But nonetheless, last night, our night 2, if you will, or second Monday night of Monday Netflix Raw, was I was kind of falling back into my old habits of not watching because I'm just I don't know. I got home at like 6, or actually I got home at 6:30. I had to pick up dinner, and my wife wasn't feeling well, so it was a takeout night to grab some food, which is always a good time. And so I get home, and Uncle Todd's texting me, "Oh, you got to see this first match." I'm just like, "Oh God, dang it!" And I'm oh
yeah, I really had to twist your arm.
No, because I was in a conversation with my my youngest, and then conversation. I need to chat with my wife about some stuff, and I'm just so once I got through all that, I came down here, and at first I thought I was stuck in Live Zone where I couldn't watch backwards at all, but thankfully I was able to do that. Apparently, Netflix doesn't allow you to Chromecast live events, I learned, so I could not Chromecast it to my television. I had to come down and watch it here in the palatial man they call Tim office setting. And but yeah,
you had to watch it in your orifice?
What?
Oh, office.
Yes. Office. Come on now, sir. Come on now.
I think this one's going bad.
I'm sorry. We all can't have a fireplace behind us like some bougie people do.
If you have the means, I highly recommend it.
Just remember to be prepared when you put that fire on. You may be shedding some layers.
I was actually gonna light it up tonight, but then I was like, it's not gonna warm up in time, and by the time it does, I'll be going to bed. So yeah.
But well, why don't you kick us off, sir? Since you were the much more dedicated of the two of us watching this, at least from the beginning through when you went to bed. What were your initial impressions of kind of the kickoff here of the Rollins, or actually the Punk Rollins, and then eventually Drew McIntyre promo?
Well, so overall, I feel like, big picture thoughts. I feel like this is actually the first Raw. Last week was kind of it was almost like a Saturday night's main event, junior PLE, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
They booked it like one. It was the same sort of deal. To me, it was very much like, oh, okay, so the intro, like backdrop stage area, it looks like that is not going to change. Or maybe that was just, it's going to change depending on where they're at. Maybe it'll be more like a PLE situation where if they can max out the seating, they will. But of course, they could have maxed out the seating at this place, and they didn't. Because they had 17,000 at the Inuit Center, and then at the SAP in San Jose where they were at, they only had like 13 some odd thousand. I'm sure they could have gotten another 1,000 in there if they set the thing up the way they did in LA.
Right.
Maybe it had to do more with the general setup of a regular arena as opposed to the Inuit Dome, because that one is obviously a bit more grandiose and brand spanking new. So maybe it allowed them to do that. I don't know. I just know that it looks more like what a regular Monday Night Raw looks like.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? The stage setup was if not the same, very similar to what they use. However, I felt like they did incorporate and learned from that first streaming Raw.
Hmm.
The drone shots I thought were actually pretty well used.
Yeah.
In terms of like introing the matches and stuff. There was only one time when it was really a glitch, and that was I think after the Priest Balor match at the end, where it was obviously that someone hadn't got the drone in the air before they cut to it live, so you kind of got to see the drone like looking out at like the floor or a table, and then
Yeah.
and they cut away real quick and then came back to it. I'm like, too late, guys. We saw that. We all totally saw that. I thought that was good. I felt they managed to use the best aspects of those shots
Mhm.
to add a real dynamic feel to the show without it being overused or some of the useless shots that they had the last time. So I felt that was good. I even felt like the way that they worked with the commercials was better. I felt like they
Yeah.
learned from that, where I think there was only one time that they cut away from a match to commercial for this week's Raw, as opposed to like last week when it was every match. It felt like
Yeah.
that they were cutting away, and it was so
It
frustrating.
felt like Saturday Night's Main Event. Like there was definitely a pattern with Saturday Night's Main Event where they would get through the intros, the match would start, get about a couple minutes under their belts, and it's like, we'll be right back. And it's like they're kind of in a rest hold for like 5 minutes while they do the commercials.
Oh, it was friggin' terrible. This time, actually, I think it was twice, because I think they did it in the Sheamus match, and then they did it in the Priest Balor match. However, at the time when they did it in the Priest Balor match, I'm like, this is the perfect time to do a cut to commercial.
Yeah.
Like, this is tailor made for it.
Yeah.
You know, and they did. So that was great. I felt like overall, like this probably was one of the best, Raws or SmackDowns I've seen. It really individually, this show really seemed to click.
Mhm.
Like the segments worked. The matches they had on this show, there wasn't a dud on them. There wasn't a dud in there. Like
Mhm.
they were all pretty damn good, if not really good. Two matches in particular I thought were really good. But yeah, the Punk Rollins thing was great. CM Punk's, as you pointed out very appropriately, Punk's reaction to Rollins' music is one of the great pleasures of my life.
Yeah.
Like, he is so legitimately, righteously indignant when he hears "burn it down."
Yeah.
And then at that one point when they did the thing where they cut to his mic,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't to the arena, it was only on the live feed, where he's like, why is it always got to be him? How come it can't be Rhea Ripley? I was like, that is so friggin' great. And then apparently, like, they showed something on Instagram today where he was like yelling to Cole and McAfee's like, oh, you guys turning on me too? Because they were singing along to Rollins' song. I'm like, you know what? I'm loving this. I mean, Punk might have been much better physically and all that, 15 years ago. I'm really enjoying this CM Punk era where it's like he has so much house money at this point.
Oh yeah.
That it's just like it's almost like watching Randy Orton in the Germany PLE
Mm-hmm.
when he was like applauding the crowd.
Yeah.
Even though they're kind of booing him, I'm like, this is a guy who's like, I've already made it. Like,
yeah.
I am so enjoying this part of my career because I'm not really that worried. Like,
yep.
I know I'm approaching the end. So what the hell?
Yeah.
I'm really appreciating that about Punk at this point. Him and Rollins, great promo, and then incorporating Drew McIntyre with, oh my gosh, like the heeliest of heels move, where he's like, he's going to charge in there. All right, let's fight. No, why would I do that? I'm like,
yep.
It even got me where I was like, oh, that is such a good move.
Well, and Punk's
Uncle
reaction
Corny's going to love that.
And Punk's reaction to McIntyre's music absolutely was hysterical. Like, I mean, just
like,
if
this
Rollins
effing guy,
if Rollins just causes him to roll his eyes and throw his hands out, yeah, like it was like, this effing guy, come on now.
Yeah. We've already settled this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, so good. that was great. And but the thing that really got to me, and the thing that really I texted you about, was the Chad Gable Penta match. Holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
That was such a good match because, one, I mean, Penta goes over.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. I mean, it's his debut. And it was like and McAfee and Cole even acknowledged it. Like, this is the world's worst kept secret. Everyone knew he was coming. And then, of course, Gable saying he wanted the best luchador. Like, gee, I wonder who's going to show up.
Yeah.
And the dude delivered, and they had one hell of a match, dude. And even though Penta goes over, like, Gable looked really strong in this and looked really good. Like, I came away from that match going, I want to see these two in a long-term thing. Like, I want to see these two lock up a few more times.
Yeah.
That was a really good match, like, well-paced. Apparently they went over, and then the promo that he had afterwards in the ring went over, so I guess they had to shorten some other stuff. But I'm like, if you've got to go long on a match, give me a couple more minutes of that match. Yeah. Please. Great, like, grappling, reversals, and some moves that were like just looked devastating as hell. Oh my gosh. Fantastic match. And to have that be like, first official match, but I mean, not the first segment, but damn, what a hell of a match to kind of kick off on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, what were your thoughts on that? Anything? Or
well, going back to the Punk Rollins McIntyre promo, I thought that was great. Just the intensity of all three guys was spot on. I felt like all three of them were able to kind of tee off on one another without subverting anyone. Like they all had good points. They all brought up, like even Punk, talking smack to Drew about coming down and I'll, put 15 more staples into your head or something. Like, I mean, I love that he draws on that, but it doesn't like make Drew look stupid either. Like it's tapping into that just raw hatred between the two of them, and just and just that violence in the match that they had once had. And so,
well, it gave you two different distinct dynamics coming from Punk. Like with Rollins, he's just sort of like, dude,
I'm done with you.
We're done.
Yeah.
But with McIntyre, even though it's supposedly done, like, there is very much a like, no, we are done. I'm not doing this anymore. And that it made it such an interesting dynamic because each one had a different relationship with either, rather than just, I don't like you and I don't like you. And it ends up being the Spider-Man meme of everyone pointing at each other.
Well, and I love too how with Rollins, it's kind of a slightly heelish Punk because, Rollins is making some points to him and he's just harping on the fact that he won. He's like, yeah, we could do this again and I'd win. I mean, it was just, he was, kind of trolling him a little bit there,
What was that? He's like, oh, so the whole thing, but I won the match, right?
Right.
But the great thing is, like, he understands that he can do those heelish things because he is so fracking over.
Yes. 100%.
He's literally kind of like in a stone cold zone right now where he can still do the heelish stuff and the people are still going to love him. And he's like, well, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Makes things a lot more interesting, doesn't it?
Oh, and all in all, like, too, I just want to say that crowd was great.
Yes, San Jose.
They popped for everyone and just had great energy. And then the Penta match, I assumed when I saw last week Gable's challenge to a mass luchador, and it was the worst kept secret. He had left AEW pretty publicly. His contract ran out. WWE's picking him up. I was texting Uncle Todd. It won't be long before his brother's going to be joining him. His brother being Ray Phoenix, who is in AEW right now and basically is in the middle of a lame duck session, I think. So, but nonetheless, we have Penta right now, and I thought it was a great. I love how they just rolled the carpet out for him. I mean, just awesome entrance, great music, great pyro to go with it. I'm glad they didn't go over the top with him and try to turn him into some sort of demon character or anything like that. But this is the Triple H era. They use a bit more restraint and they're a bit more practical with things, and they really just had it be a showcase of, his abilities. And Chad Gable, there are points in the match I'm like, Gable has not been made to look like a total jobber, but I mean, it's not like he's been made to look super strong either. So I was kind of like, what are they doing?
I don't know, man. I mean, he took a lot of really strong offense from Penta. Like it felt like it wasn't 50-50, but I mean, I don't think it was like 90-10. I think it was more like 60-40. I feel like Gable actually, in a way,
right,
rehabbed a little bit in a loss.
Yes, but it was kind of a dangerous line they were walking, because if you have someone who's losing a lot and then you debut someone and they can barely beat them, like, what does that say about that guy then? You know what I mean? Like, but I get what you're saying. They haven't totally jobbed Gable out. I mean, Gable's gotten some victories and he's looked good, and I want to see him get built up, but they got to, like, for lack of a better term, ask or get off the pot sort of situation. It's like, are you going to build this guy up, or are you going to continue to job him out to people? Make up your mind. Like, I thought putting him against the Wyatt Six was the stupidest thing they could have done, unless they were going to do something where he became one of them, because it's just like, where is this going to go? You have a brand new group debuting, and of course his faction is going to lose, which sucks, because they put him with the Creed brothers, and I thought they were going to kind of do another Kurt Angle, Charlie Haas, Shelton Benjamin sort of trio sort of thing, which I thought would have been kind of fun and cool to see in this time, as opposed to back in the 2000s. And like the Creed brothers to me have fallen flat. Gable, it's a he wins some, he loses some. It's like, I just wish they would choose to push this guy and make him to be kind of like, again, not like Kurt Angle, which he kind of got the "you sucks" chance last night, so he is kind of Kurt Angle 2.0 here.
I mean, they basically just inverted Kurt Angle's theme in some ways.
Yes,
like, musically speaking, I was like, this sounds familiar. Oh yeah, it's a mirror image of Kurt Angle's music.
So, I to me, it's like, get him moving in a direction, give him a title, give him some credibility here, please, because he has great matches, and he put over Penta. I don't think he lost anything either in the loss, but and I don't think Penta lost anything either. I think he looked very, very sharp and strong, very good, and I think the crowd loved. I think it was great they did it in San Jose, and on the West Coast, where he probably has a bit more of a following and stuff like that. And so I'm really
well. And then they gave him the post match, the post match in ring promo, which is not a thing that they do very often.
No,
not in WWE. I mean, this is an old school kind of thing to do the in ring promo like this. At least for WWE, AEW seems to do it, but then of course the whole gimmick is like, somebody yanks the microphone away from Shivani, and Shivani still walks away acting like he's talking on a microphone. It's like, you already look like a jackass. You don't need any help to do it.
Yeah.
But then he delivered like 50% of his promo in Spanish. I'm like, oh yeah, this is his town. Like,
yeah. And the crowd ate it up. Crowd ate it up, and so now, where do they go from here with them? I'm really curious to see. And so, I thought it was a great match, and to be honest, it kind of followed the pattern from last week, where we had kind of a long promo, and then that match and the promo after. I mean, that was hour one. Like that was very similar to last week, when it was, just the what was the promo to start? Oh, it was Triple H and The Rock.
Yeah.
And then you had the Tribal Combat match, which ate into, I think, it was all of hour one and then went into hour two. And so, I thought it was great. And then that kind of gets into, I'm just trying to go through the, what was the other thing I want to talk about? And then we had Sheamus and Ludwig Kaiser, who, man, Sheamus, for as aged as he is, he just cannot help himself just getting a shellacking no matter who he's fighting. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just the guy looks, at the end of every match, he's just red as red can be. Well, sweat pouring off of him. You know what I mean?
In all fairness, he starts off pale as pale can be, so it doesn't take much to bring that out. I'm just saying.
But every match he's in, there's chops, there's punches. It's just so physical. This guy.
Yeah. That's just his thing. And you know what? That was actually a really good match. Another one where I was like, this is not, it's definitely not the same as what we just saw, which is good. And yeah, I thought it was a good match. I thought the women's IC crowning match was really good. That was probably my second favorite match of the night.
Yeah.
Lyra Valkyrie was really good. Dakota Kai was actually really good too. Like that was another match where it felt like every match, even though there's not a lot of history between necessarily the participants, they got the chemistry right. Like they picked two people who could go into the ring and just have a good match. I don't like the duds weren't there. But that was a good way to crown an IC championship. We got the Rhea Ripley, promo, which unfortunately involved Nia Jax. That was like the one.
I thought of you when I saw that. I'm just like, oh, Uncle Todd must be so happy right now.
I'm like, what? I just don't understand what they're doing with her. I really don't. I get that you're trying to rehab her and you're trying to go in different directions, but I mean, and yeah, they're booing her, but I feel like it's not good heel heat. It's like, we are sick of you. We don't like you. Go away. But of course you get Bayley involved. That all's well that ends well there. I thought the Sami Zayn Miz match was actually, again, surprisingly good. It was not. It wasn't too long, which it didn't need to be. It was, but it was still. It wasn't a squash, but it wasn't. It wasn't actually the typical Sami Zayn match where he just gets his ass kicked for like 90% of the time and pulls out the win.
Yeah,
it felt like a pretty even match. Which I mean, I don't know if that says too much about Sami, because Miz is just about washed these days, but. And even the Priest Balor match turned out to be, entertaining. And that was kind of interesting because you have Priest, who's supposed to be the babyface, ends up doing the ultimate heel thing and going after the dude who's on the stretcher.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, people bought into it. So it's like, well, what the hell do I know?
Yeah.
Triple H has apparently got his fingers on the pulse. Yeah, overall, solid show, man. I was like, if this is what Raw is going to be, I'm pretty happy. Like, there's no minute and a half dumbass, DQ, non-ending matches. It's some good matches that showcase the workers that you have.
Yep.
You're still moving some storylines along. The backstage segments are short and sweet and actually kind of a little bit more sensical. Overall, man, I was pretty damn happy with it. It was a good watch, and I will say this as someone who I watched half of it live, and then I was like, I gotta call this, and then I watched the other half on replay today. I don't think, if I'm remembering correctly, when I finished watching the first one, or when I went back to watch the debut, I think you still had to sit through commercials.
This is what I experienced last night when I started it from the beginning. When I was an hour off, there were no commercials.
Yeah, so when you're watching the replay, it actually skips the commercials.
So it's to my benefit to watch
I was like, that was kind of cool.
Yes.
So I feel like that's one of those things where they might have heard from fans, that the commercials were interminable, which I'm very thankful for. So that was good. No, overall, I'm happy with that, man. How about
I'm not
you?
looking forward to the Gunther Jey Uso championship match because
that's right, I blocked that out.
Jey Uso's got, I mean, he brings the fire in the promos. Like this is a guy who's got charisma like to the nth degree. He has energy. He knows how to hype a crowd up. But man, do I just get nonplussed by his matches. And for Exhibit A on that, I happened to catch some of or on YouTube, I was watching from SmackDown, the Jimmy Uso Cody versus the Samoan Werewolf and Tama Tonga. And I'm watching Jimmy Uso and I'm like, is that Jimmy in there or is that Jay? Because the moveset is virtually the same. It's incredible.
It is exactly the same.
And it's like he wants to, Gunther made fun of him for being nothing more than a tag wrestler. It's like, yeah, show us something more than the same freaking moves you did with your brother.
It felt like CM Punk should have been like popped out from behind Gunther at one point during that promo and be like, tell me when he's telling lies. And then just disappeared again.
Yeah.
And that was, here's the thing, like, I get it. Like, Jey Uso hypes the crowd, yada, yada. He's got charisma. He's only got one note.
Yeah.
Even in his promos, like, he looks like, it's this weirdest thing. Like, it looks like he's kind of begging for acceptance.
Well,
even when he's confrontational, I'm like,
he's playing the like he's trying to play the underdog role. Like, even though he's kind of ascended to the star that he's
but
at,
he's doing it in like a very lame way.
Well, but this is what he and his brother have been doing for the last 5 years. Like the way he cut that promo, or where he, he's pacing back and forth, and he's like kind of doing the rhythmic, you're putting me down, and da 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 da. Like, that's what he and Jimmy have been doing for years.
Yeah.
Like, this is exactly the same Uso gimmick. It's just he's channeling it, wearing the yeet glasses and doing the meh, and that's the part. Like, I'm saying this as someone who wants to cheer for him. I want to, this is a guy who's been in WWE for a long time, and I want to see him break off and become his own thing. But like, when Bret Hart split from Jim Neidhart, there was a reason. And again, I'm not trying to say Uso can grow into Bret Hart, but it's one of those things that it's like Bret had his own identity outside of the Hart Foundation.
Well, yeah.
Jim Neidhart struggled with that and ended up having to then form a tag team with Owen to just get back into the conversation in WWE.
Yeah. But Bret Hart was a singles guy before that too. Like, he wasn't always a tag team guy. Like, has Jey Uso ever before this run been a singles wrestler?
No, but what I'm saying is, and this is, maybe my memory's bad here, but Bret Hart, his ascendancy to stardom was as a tag team wrestler managed by Jimmy Hart. Like, that's when he became a big name.
But I'm saying, like, when back in the day before he got to WWE, when he was working in Calgary and all that stuff, like, he was a singles guy.
He was a singles guy, yes.
I don't know if Jey Uso has ever worked on his own before now. And it's like, he is totally trying to do just the tag stuff as a singles guy. And the problem is, it's not Bret Hart in his 20s, going to WWE, and then in his early 30s going, like, how old is Jey Uso now?
Yeah.
I just, like, I'm not, again, like, I'm kind of like you. Like, I'm rooting for everybody because I like just good stuff to watch.
He's 39.
It's a little late in the game to all of a sudden, like, develop an entire new bag of tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'm saying this as a 48, almost 49-year-old dude. Like, developing a new bag of tricks is really hard at this point. And I'm, I don't, it's extremely hard in a professional sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, all the stuff I'm realizing that I've changed about myself is in a personal sense. A little easier to mess up there because your paycheck ain't riding on it.
But I think, like, to me, it's just as simple as just change the rhythm of your matches. Like, do a suplex, do a backbreaker,
does he know any? Because does he feel comfortable enough to execute those?
Got to.
Does he? I mean, really? How many people have we seen that have, like, the same 6 moves? Roman Reigns, sir.
Well,
but anyways,
not to mention,
Hogan.
his finisher is also basically copying Roman Reigns. I mean, Roman, Jay, and Jimmy all put away people through the spear at this stage in life. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of like, ugh.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if this is like, dear God, I hope they don't put the belt on him. I really do, because I can't even imagine.
Thought crossed my mind last night, like, oh my God, they're not going to do it, are they? They're going to make that the title they change on Saturday Night's Main Event. Oh, good Lord Almighty! Please tell me no. Tell me no.
I knew there was something I was forgetting in the recap, and that was like, oh yeah, if there was one thing that had me as nonplussed, as confused as a baby raccoon, as Nia Jax's promo segment, it was Jey Uso, where I'm like, oh.
Yeah. But real quick, my quick hits. Nia Jax just made me laugh because I just was like, "Oh, Uncle Todd must be either,
when she came down the
tossing and turning in bed, or because I think you weren't watching at that point, so I'm just like, oh, there's
I watched that on
replay
force today. And when she walked down the aisle and she's like, and they're booing her, and she's like, rude. I'm like, oh my God, that should not be you. Like, you're not a.
Yeah. And then with the street fight, I thought that was well done. Thought he and Priest and Balor had a great back and forth. Yeah, love the whole thing where he gets put on the stretcher and then Priest just decides the hell with this. I'm just going to beat the heck out of him and then throws him in the ring. And I love seeing Finn Balor with a neck brace on, just getting the crap kicked out of him.
What I want to know is, like,
hysterical.
Did they practice with the stretcher?
Oh, when he pushed it and he like rolled into the ring.
I'm like, because all it takes is like those wheels hitting a little lip. Like they must have been like, all right, let's try pushing this once and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Finn, you get on it this time. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. And then I love the end part where he just grabs him by the throat and he's like, "I'm not my brother's keeper."
Yeah,
kabam! And then it was the end. So
yeah,
very satisfying end, very good Raw. So man, WWE still hitting on all cylinders, 2 for 2.
They are.
All right. Well, we're already at the 45-minute mark here. Do we want to go through any of these three, or do we want to just move on?
How about we pick one? Let's pick one, just so we're not.
All right, let's do the first one, the Back to the Future one, because to me, this is high comedy right here.
All right.
ScreenRant.com. Oh, actually, I have the BamSmack.pow, though. I wanted to work
BamSmack.pow. It's like a .pow.
BamSmack.
Can you get that for a URL as a .pow?
Yeah, you can do a .pow.
I want to do that.
Means professional orator worldwide. I just came up with that just like that. All right.
That's some sweet smelling bullshit right there.
Thank you very much.
Good on you.
From ScreenRant.com, purveyors of all rants that pertain to screen. We have from Robert Zemeckis, from his mouth to our ears. Back to the Future would have removed one part of Back to the Future's ending. He would have removed had he known a sequel was going to be made. And what makes me laugh about this is really what it boils down to is, we wouldn't have had Jennifer be part of the end of the movie if I knew we were doing a sequel, because we had to do something with her.
And what we ended up doing was having her sleep through most of it.
Basically. So what I found interesting about the article was that he really didn't know, or there was no plan to actually do a sequel. The way they ended the movie was meant to be open-ended. It was meant to be playful. But it wasn't, when he did the to be continued, it wasn't because they actually had a plan to do a sequel. It was later on, when this thing became a smash, that they talked about, okay, if we were to do a part 2, what would we do? Mm-hmm. And what he talks about in the article is basically like, yeah, when we went to think about doing this, I wasn't designing, he's quoted in the article saying, I wasn't designing a movie for a sequel, because if I was, I never would have put the girlfriend in the car. That became a gigantic problem in writing a sequel. And so, rather than integrating her into the main narrative, the filmmakers opted to sideline the character by having her faint when she sees her future self. To your point, she basically sleeps through most of the future and then is summarily, laid out in well, the weird part is
not laid out. She was like, they put her on a porch and just left her there.
Well, that's what I mean. I thought they had like a swing or something on the porch that they laid her out on, but that was in like the corrupted 1985. So they left her kind of the wolves in a way. It's just oh dear Lord. And then supposedly magically, when he changes the timeline, everything sets right at that point. But
yeah,
I just thought this article was just kind of funny, because it was just like one of those situations of, if I'd known something, I probably wouldn't have done that. So, but
wouldn't we have all?
Indeed. Do you want to do Bam Smack Pow, or do you want to move on?
I mean, we're almost at the 50-minute mark. Let's actually try to finish this one before midnight this time.
All right, let's call the Week in Geek here, ladies and gentlemen. We'll bring Bam Smack Pow into our next episode, and we do have a little bit of a Matrix article, which I thought was kind of interesting. So that, my friends, is a week. Your Week in Geek. There you go. You were staring at me and it was throwing my rhythm off. I don't know. You were just kind of like,
all right. Well, I was wondering if you'd learned English as a fourth language. All right. On that note, I'm calling a 30-second timeout, and we'll rejoin you very soon.
Now I know why he was looking at me funny.
What?
Now I know why you were looking at me funny.
It was gas.
There you have it.
Many months later.
Okay. And we are back, which you can tell because we're back on the screen, or if you're just listening, we're making noise with our mouths. So now we're going to get into the main topic for our show. That is our favorite cover songs. And I feel like there's kind of there's three different ways you can kind of go with cover songs, and you can
Only
kinda tell
three?
me. Well, yeah. But in terms of like like there are the outright disasters of like, dear God, why did you do this? Then there's others that are just like, okay, you covered the song and you basically did the song as it was. I feel like for both of us, we're veering more towards this third way where it's like you want to hear a song performed in a different way, or with a different type of energy, or kind of in a different genre, or whatever, something that makes you hear a song and go, oh, that's kind of cool, and it adds this whole new wrinkle to a song that you kind of might have liked before. In my case, at least, where there's a few of these songs where I'm like, oh, I like the original, but then I heard the cover and I'm like, oh, that's freaking mind blowing. So I feel like that's kind of where both of our lists went. Am I correct in saying that, sir?
I would say so. Yes.
Okay.
I would say so.
And I definitely twisted the man they call Tim's arm in this one, because this is I love the idea of cover songs. The band I play in, we cover a lot of songs, and there's some that we do them a little bit differently, and then there's some that's like, nah, that song was pretty good as the way it was, and we're a bar band, so hey, you play the hits and you make the people happy. However, if we weren't, there'd be a little more choosy, I guess.
Yeah.
So, first of all, we are going, because we can't get away without doing special mentions.
Of course.
We each have 2 special mentions. I've got about another dozen that I could have thrown in here as examples.
I'm shocked. I'm just
know.
flat out shocked by that.
But there's 2 that I will mostly talk about, but then there's a few others I want to mention because I feel like people really ought to check them out.
Folks, I brought 2 to the table just for the record.
I know,
2.
and usually you have more than that, so I feel pretty well justified.
I was very restrained. I am a fantasy world champion, so I have to, kind of. Oh, he filled it up again. Oh, nicely done. Round 2. All righty then, sir. Very nice.
Oh, that one's even better than the first one. I'm getting good at this.
All right. You have to teach me how to muddle the orange.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You just beat the living snot out of it. I mean, it's not a lot of technique.
So when you do it, basically you put the orange slice in and it's like, you in that fantasy league, you son of a...
That's actually exactly what I did. You found my secret.
Well, all right. I will have to employ that. All right.
So what is your number 2 special mention?
My number 2 is, and just to give a little prologue on my choices. So as one would imagine with these sorts of lists, based on experience, not just kind of pulling from what popular sentiment would be. These are all songs that I have listened to that have just kind of hit me a certain way, and as Uncle Todd was saying, is kind of a riff or a different take on what its predecessor was. So my number 2 here is Metallica, Whiskey in the Jar from 1998. This is from the Garage Inc. album, and actually garnered for the band a Grammy in 2000 for Best Hard Rock Performance, and rightfully so. That song
a couple
was
of good songs off of that. That was the one that had Turn the Page on it.
Yes, I believe so.
It had Tuesday's Gone with the Wind, which had a freaking fantastic harmonica solo by John Popper, which you don't normally think of. When you think of Metallica, you don't think harmonica solo.
No.
Nor John Popper.
No. Although you've just reminded me, I haven't listened.
However,
to
I'm guessing there was a lot
time.
of whiskey consumed during that.
Probably.
That.
Probably.
Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to just.
No, that's okay. So, Metallica did this cover in 1998. Very much enjoyed it. It was originally recorded. I looked this up in Wikipedia. Originally recorded by the Dubliners in the 60s.
Such a good band.
But popularized by Thin Lizzy in 1973. So this was my number 2, song that was played a lot on. I mean, it got a lot of radio time back in the day. This is way before Spotify, right on the cusp of, gosh, what was
Napster?
Napster? Thank you. That Metallica went toe to toe with. So
yeah.
No, this was my number 2. Just a great cover of a great song and a very different take to it. It's Metallica's take on it, and they did a great job. What was your number 2, sir?
Actually, before I do my number 2, I'm going to run through this other list that I had because I just feel I have to. Going to go with Hard to Handle by the Black Crowes, originally by Otis Redding. All Along the Watchtower, which is going to show up surprisingly later on. Of course, the U2 version is the one that I kind of gravitated a little bit more towards. I don't know what it was about it, but it kind of just sits a little bit differently with me. Boys of Summer, the Don Henley classic, done by the Ataris, which is a pop punk band. Great cover of that. Take on Me by Real Big Fish, originally performed by Aha. The Real Big Fish version is actually really killer. I love that. Take Me Home, Country Roads, John Denver classic, performed by none other than the genius of soul, Ray Charles, who was also a huge country music fan. And, not just like someone who's like, oh, I'm going to kind of do this because there's money in it. Like Ray legit seemed to love country music. And there's been a lot of folks, who makes me reconsider my takes sometimes on country music when I'm like, okay, if all these folks really like this, I should probably think about this a little bit more. Song for You by Ray Charles, performed by Ray Charles. It was Leon Russell originally wrote it and performed it. Ray Charles' version of it, and this is off his album My World, which was very difficult to find up until the last couple of years when the Ray Charles catalog finally made it onto Apple Music. Excuse me. A fantastic album. I believe it might be one of his very last albums. And the way that this song is performed, and just it's one of those songs that I think, and this will tie in with a song that is going to be in your list, where part of the poignancy comes from knowing the person, the history of the musician who is performing, and the mileage that is on that individual's life, and then combining that with the song, you're like, oh man, this is coming so far deep in the soul, it's kind of scary. Nothing Compares to You, originally written by Prince, made famous by Sinead O'Connor, which was, holy crap. Work to Do by Average White Band. That was originally by the Isley Brothers, I believe. Yeah, Isley Brothers. Not too crazy different, but I felt like the Average White Band just brought this extra like intensity to the groove that it makes it different enough that it's worthwhile. Heard It Through the Grapevine, originally recorded by Marvin Gaye, the one of the all-time great singers, that does not get nearly enough credit for being such a fantastic singer, even though he is regarded as a great singer, which just goes to show in my case like how you can underestimate someone who is even regarded so highly. But the Creedence Clearwater Revival version of it, totally different. It gave a whole new life to the song. And here's one that is kind of odd. Gin and Juice, the Snoop Dogg classic, recorded by a bluegrass band called the Gourds.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, you ain't lived until you've heard, so much drama in the LBC. It's kind of hard. I mean, with like a southern twang singing it, it is
Sky rockets in flight.
It is effing fantastic. It is effing fantastic. I will post if nothing else, I will post a link to that song in the show notes because everyone should listen to it. Okay, now we get to my and actually here's one more.
Oh my God.
Every Day is a Winding Road, originally by Sheryl Crow, performed by Prince on one of his on Rave Unto the World. Fantastic. I don't know, something. Fantastic cover. Anyways, my number 2 honorable mention after getting to that list of 24 songs is Speed of the Sound of Loneliness by Alabama 3. Alabama 3 is a UK-ish based band that meshes acid house, country, blues, all kinds of stuff. They are the band that wrote and recorded Woke Up This Morning, the Sopranos theme song. Speed of the Sound of Loneliness was originally written and recorded by John Prine. It was for his 1986 album German Afternoons. It was recorded by Alabama 3 on their 1997's Exile on Cold Harbor Lane album. It has a totally different vibe. And then Alabama 3 also performs, they have a full band, full electric, all this stuff. They also perform stripped down with like 2 vocalists, guitar and harmonica. and they do a completely different version of this song. So it's like you kind of get two covers in one. It's just terrific. A great version. Either of the Alabama 3 versions, because there's another one I think that they did. They actually recorded the acoustic version on an album called Last Train to Mashville, I believe. But either of those are a fine counterpoint to the original written by John Prine, one of the all-time great songwriters. So I felt it didn't quite make it into my top 5, but felt it needed to be included. What is your other special mention, sir?
And they will make an appearance in my top 5, but number 1 should not be a surprise to Uncle Todd and to the listeners. Rush doing a cover of, they call it Crossroads, but I believe it was called Crossroads Blues or something to that effect. It was originally a 1936 blues song recorded by Robert Johnson.
Yeah.
And they covered it in 2004 on their Feedback album, which was an album of covers that or bands that they grew up idolizing and doing songs that those bands did. And so they did it there, but they also performed at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That actually should be on YouTube. Maybe we'll have a link in the show notes on that. But it was, I think it was the year. I don't know if it was the year that Rush was being honored or not. I'm drawing a blank. Actually, no, I think it was because Neil was there. So they I think they were also doing a tribute to Robert Johnson during that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and so that's where the song came from. It wasn't Rush playing it for themselves. No, I don't think it was when they were honored. I think it was they were doing a tribute to Robert Johnson, and they were there for some reason and they performed. I got to go back and look. Actually, I'm going to look it up when you go through your next one. But anyways, that's not important. Crossroads, the song, blues song, really well done. I like the version that Rush ends up doing, and it's it's a little more rock, a little more peppy, but it has just a great sound to it, and just a great tune all around. So I would highly recommend that as my number 1 special mention.
Probably could have almost been an entire episode on our top 5 versions of that song, because there's been so many covers that one of the more famous ones being, of course, by Cream back in the 60s. Kind of almost the industry standard, if you will, of how most people cover it now. John Mayer has covered it. My favorite cover of Crossroads is by Buckwheat Zydeco, a Zydeco, New Orleans, Louisiana musician. It's funky. It's great. You'll have to check that one out. But no, worthy inclusion there, sir, for sure. My other special mention goes to ZZ Top's cover of "I Thank You," which is interesting because I never, until I kind of got more into soul music and Motown and stuff like that, I never realized this was a cover. Probably because I didn't have the album, so I didn't have the liner notes or anything. But this was originally recorded and released as a single by Sam and Dave back in 1968. It was written by David Porter and, damn you, Loch Ness Monster, Isaac Hayes, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice.
It was from ZZ Top's 1979 Duguelo album, which in and of itself is a great album. Oh my gosh, lots of good tunes off that album. But again, took this in a totally different direction, and really took a straight ahead kind of Motown style soul song and turned it into this sloggy kind of Texas blues. It's friggin' great to see how they managed to spin that around.
Nice.
And a classic for ZZ Top as well. Kind of a pretty big hit for them.
Very cool. Can I swing back to Crossroads real quick?
Yes, please.
So I was looking up on YouTube as you were talking, and this was the finale performance of that night. It was in 2013. It was when Rush was inducted. It included, this was a Super Jam performance. It was meant to honor Robert Johnson. So it starts with a member of Run DMC. What's his name?
Reverend Run?
What's that?
Is it? It's either Run or DMC.
It's Daryl DMC McDaniels.
Yes. Okay.
And Chuck D from Public Enemy starting it off with a rap. and as they're kind of doing their rap, Geddy Lee starts kicking in with just a thick, fat bass line that just
Dude, you gotta send me a link.
I will send you a link. You've got to put it is just chef's kiss. But just to run through the list of names on this one, Rush, Public Enemy, Heart. Additional performers: Dave Grohl, John Fogerty, Tom Morello, Gary Clark Jr., and Chris Cornell. We're all on stage playing this version of the song. Neil Peart was playing drums, and it was just
that's an
phenomenal.
Embarrassment of riches.
Phenomenal. All right, moving on from special mentions to the best in the world.
Do we want to go 5-1, or do you have?
Let's go 5-1.
Order? All right.
Let's go 5-1. So my number 5, keeping the Rush vibe going. This one is also from their Feedback album in 2004, a cover of the Who song, "The Seeker," and I really enjoy their version of it. Not saying the Who version isn't great, but there's just a grittiness and just a drive to this version of The Seeker that just kind of, the first time I heard it in the car, I was just kind of geeking out to it as I was hearing it for the first time, and really enjoyed their version of it. So it was something from it was a cover they did for the Feedback album, and then they later made it part of their set list for the R30. That was their 30th anniversary live tour that they did, live DVD, where they performed it there as well. But just sounds like it's a great rendition of it. It was originally recorded by the Who in March 1970. And just a great version of this song. A lot of energy, a lot of drive, and just it's always a song I listen to kind of give me a little up and at 'em. So The Seeker. What about you, sir? What is your number 5?
I'm going to go with "When the Levee Breaks" by Led Zeppelin.
Oh, that's a good one.
First recorded in 1929 by Memphis Minnie and Kansas Joe McCoy.
I forgot this was a cover. This was a cover. I thought this was just a Zeppelin song, and I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean, so much of Zeppelin is blues that is then like strained through a dirty sweat sock. It is like they truly managed to take something like Delta blues, even Chicago blues, and somehow turn it into this other thing. And so much of that is Bonham and John Paul Jones, the bass player. So much of that. I know Jimmy Page gets a ton of credit, and he should.
Yeah.
But man, the rhythm section does a lot of work, especially in something like this. Oh my gosh, it's just sludge.
Mm-hmm.
But as someone who plays this live, it's a lot of fun to play that sludge. Woo. This was from Zeppelin's 1971 Led Zeppelin 4 album, and I mean, I appreciate it because it is also radio unfriendly. It's like 6.5 minutes long.
Oh yeah.
It is just luxurious in how long they take in between segments of the song at times, where it's like, oh my gosh.
Who plays the harmonica when you perform this in your band? Is that you?
We don't, because there's only 3 of us and there was 4 of them. So
okay.
Mr. Plant could play the harmonica, and I could. I actually did get a chance to play harmonica on this at a Led Zeppelin tribute one night.
Wow.
And that was a whole lot of fun. But I had no other responsibilities. With my band, I have to play bass and sing this, so I figured that's enough.
Oh, come on. You can do harmonica too. Come on now.
Yeah, one of the guys was like, hey, can't you get one of those things? I'm like, aren't I doing enough? Like, you want me to do your job too? I mean, for God's sake.
I'm not Bob Dylan, damn it.
But anyways, no, that song is just, it's so fun and so massive. And we've talked about this as a band before, but none of us have been able to really track down a live version of this. Like, I don't know that Zeppelin ever really performed it live, which kind of makes it a bit of an anomaly, But yeah, right from the the echoey drums at the beginning to just when the bass kicks in, you get that bow do 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 do. Oh my, I'm done at that point. Yeah, so definitely needed to find its way into the top 5.
Nice.
What do you got at number 4, sir?
My number 4, again, just a lot of radio airplay, and just it's become a bit of an earwig of sorts when you hear it. But American Woman, 1999, Lenny Kravitz, covered by Kravitz for the soundtrack of Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me, which I completely forgot about that movie. It was released as a single in May of 99 and was later included on the reissue of Kravitz's album 5. But it was originally recorded and released by a Canadian band called Guess Who in January of 1970.
Excuse me, I believe that is the Guess Who.
Oh, is it the Guess Who?
I think it is.
I will add that in there. But yeah, no, Kravitz brings his own flair, style, and from the I included the Wikipedia article here for it, which is or page for it, which is kind of funny. When Kravitz did his version, what was the thing I read? His version is slower and softer than the original, which I don't know if I would agree that it's softer. It feels like the guitar has got some, oomph to it. Without the signature guitar solo, he later said to Randy Bachman that the reason why he skipped the lead guitar part was, I couldn't get the sound, I couldn't get the tone. So, the hell with it. And he got rid of it. Yeah. So, hey, it worked though. It's a very, very good version of it, and it's just in my head at least, it's just a classic song from the late '90s of just Lenny Kravitz, and he just does a great job with this, and it sticks with you. Earwig is appropriate. So
Lenny is one of those dudes who he's a musical savant. He also happens to be one of the top 10 coolest people on the planet at any given moment, which is really frustrating for anyone who tries to do his stuff, because you're just like, not only is there no hope of me covering this as well as he could sing it, but like I will never even be a tenth of as cool as Lenny Kravitz is. Damn it. So, but a worthy inclusion, sir. My number 4 is I Will Survive, as covered by the band Cake.
Nice.
This was originally recorded by Gloria Gaynor on her 1978 Love Tracks album, and incidentally was added to the National Recording Registry in 2016 by the Library of Congress. Cake's version comes from their 1996 Fashion Nugget album. One thing I did want to point out about I Will Survive that I thought was really interesting is basically they had a 3-hour recording session. And at the time, this was being recorded as a single. So you have an A and a B side, because it's an old 45. This was not the A side. This was the B side. The A side was a song called Substitute. So basically, they spent most of the time recording the A side, and they only had 35 minutes to record I Will Survive. So basically, the musicians who were on the session didn't know the song, the title, the melody, or anything. They basically just improvised and came to this song, and boom, this is what you have. And it's a song that, I appreciate how Cake has said many times, or the lead singer has said many times, like they've never done this song ironically. Like they believe that this is it is a folk song, like it is a song of empowerment, and they take it seriously.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it should be. Like the more you listen to the song, it's like, this is a powerful song. And a worthy inclusion to the Library of Congress. And but Cake's version is just one of those things where, man, the combination of just all of the musical parts and then the lead singer's odd phrasing and almost the talk singing that goes on, it adds this whole new dimension, but it doesn't take away from anything. Like you still get this kind of like, there is a certain emotion to the song that it comes through. It just comes through in a different way, and I really appreciate that about that specific version of it. And I mean, I think I've heard other people try and do this song, but it's like, nah, it's either Gloria or it's Cake.
Yeah,
that's it. Like I don't think anybody else has done the song justice. What you got for number 3, sir?
Before we move on to number 3, while you were talking, I was listening to the beginning of the song on YouTube, and man, that's got a funky bass to it.
Oh, the bass player from Cake is so underrated. That dude is good.
Bringing the funk big time.
I would love to do that song, except that I would have to then play that and sing it, and that ain't happening.
That's a bit much.
Yeah.
My number 3 was a song done in 1978 by Van Halen. The cover, "You Really Got Me." Hey, you really got me now. Covered in 1978 by Van Halen for their debut album. The cover was the band's first single from it, and it was a popular radio hit that helped launch the band's career. It was covered from the original by the Kinks. You Really Got Me in 1964. So a mere 14 years later, and it is repurposed, redone, and done in such a way that it kind of launched Van Halen's career in a way. So
Yeah.
that was my number 3. Was and not to mention also the guitar solo that kind of leads into it a little bit. Where we is that Eruption that goes before it, or
I think it is actually, yeah.
let me double check that. Van Halen.
What I think is cool about that is the fact that it's a nod to what Van Halen was prior to their major label debut. And there's a couple of things you can find on.
Yeah, Eruption preceded it. It was Eruption, and then it goes right into
Yeah.
Ba-na-na-na-na.
Perfect setup, dude.
Oh,
absolutely
phenomenal.
perfect. Like those two are just joined.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a couple things on YouTube where there are people who have come up with like these, like what the albums would have been had they recorded a couple years earlier, and kind of delving into some of the like demo tracks that Van Halen had done prior to, the first album.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got like, covers up the wazoo. You've got like one of the covers on there that blew my mind was like they covered ZZ Top's Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool, but I didn't see that one coming.
Nope.
So I kind of like the fact that that's a bit of a nod to like the beginnings of the band as a party band. And if you're playing parties and stuff and nobody knows who the hell you are, you play other people's songs to get over,
Yeah. And to your point, I don't know that their version is I don't want to say it's not different from the Kinks, but I think it follows a similar form. It's not like they put their stamp on it, but I like what you said there.
Oh.
When they play Eruption and it goes into it,
yeah,
like that's the Van Halen part of it. When Eddie goes off and does his thing, and then he holds it, and then it's like ba-na-na-na-na. I mean, like it's just kind of that lead into it that just makes it like theirs,
Yes, but there is also just like any song that Eddie Van Halen is playing on has a different feel.
Yes,
he was that guy that as soon as he started playing, you're like,
well, he's playing a bunch of fills in there too, right?
Yeah.
When Roth, I think the first time he sings, "You really got me now, you got me going," and he's he's doing like all that stuff on there.
He's playing rhythm and lead at the same time, and probably smoking a cigarette.
Right, but what I'm saying, it's different from like Metallica doing Whiskey in the Jar, which they took that song and put their own style into it. You know what I mean? I don't feel like Van Halen put their style into "Girl You Got Me," but it didn't result in like a different arrangement or a different feel to it.
Well, and actually the Metallica version, arrangement wise, is not that significantly different than, it's still the song. I would just say that like the Van Halen thing is like, we don't need to really rearrange it, do it in a different style. We don't need to make it faster. We don't need to make it slower or any of that. Like the difference is Eddie and Alex. Because I mean, the Alex's drum sound is so distinct. Eddie's guitar sound is so distinct that, I mean, if you listen back to like the Kinks version, like it's very, it's distorted guitar, but Eddie's guitar is so distinctive because it's a freaking amp that's just cranked up all the way, and he's just, everything is maxed, and just naturally the sound is breaking, and he's somehow controlling that thing. Holy hell.
Yeah.
Anyways,
good stuff.
It
stuff.
is.
So that is my number 3. Is You Really Got Me. What is your number 3, sir?
My number 3 is a case of, and this is going to be a case for you, I believe, coming up very shortly here, is a case of a cover essentially stealing the song away from its original owner and not really looking back. And this is Respect by Aretha Franklin. It was originally written and recorded by Otis Redding for his 1965 album Otis Redding Blues / Otis Redding Sings Soul.
Mhm.
Aretha released it only 2 years later, and it became her
Jeez,
signature song.
Wow.
It is rearranged. It is a different feel, but Aretha took the song and she ain't never given it back.
Over my dead body.
It was just done. It was then Aretha's song, and
Oh, wow.
I mean, the Queen of Soul just. I mean, what are you gonna say? Like, it just became her song, and it is massive, and it is one of those songs that I've had a chance to play live with a previous band, and it is one of those songs that, like, you can play that in a room of 20 somethings and people know it. It's almost like down in our DNA somewhere where people just kind of respond to a song in a certain way. It is a song that is going to outlive us all, much like the avocado colored appliances of the 70s and Keith Richards.
Amen and amen.
It's just the way it's going to work. So yeah,
it's just how it is.
Mm-hmm. What do you got sitting at number 2?
So number 2, to kind of continue on that theme, this one was, man, first time I heard this was just a freaking surprise. And I'm just like, you just listen to it. And at the end of it, you're just like, kind of like Keanu Reeves as Neo. You're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Cause Johnny Cash at an age where he shouldn't be laying down the lumber, lays down the lumber, ladies and gentlemen, in this one. And I'm talking about his cover of the 9 Inch Nails song Hurt, covered in 2002. I just had a small note here. Trent Reznor himself, the man who wrote the song, man who did the song with 9 Inch Nails back in April of 95, that is when it was released, is on record as saying, this is no longer my song anymore. This is Johnny Cash's song. And rightfully so. Holy crap, did Cash knock it out of the park.
The first time I heard this was, I want to say, because this is like when YouTube or like internet videos were still kind of very much not a thing.
In their infancy, yeah.
Yeah, it was very much like YouTube's infancy. I think this was YouTube. But the music video for this song, have you ever seen it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's how I originally saw it, was the music, which I think that brings some gravitas to it, too. Like the video with the audio and knowing Cash in his life, it's, and I think that's why Reznor had to, and I don't mean to say had to, I think it was probably an honor for him to see his song done this way, but to cede that to Cash made a lot of sense, because it almost became like autobiographical, the way when he was singing it,
Yeah, that's what I talk about when I'm talking about like Ray Charles singing "Song for You." It's like you instantly graft the biography of the person who's singing it onto the lyrics in the song, and you're like, oh, this hits harder. This hits in a totally different way. I remember I like as we were talking about this, like I've got the chills going up the back of my neck here, because I can remember what it was like watching this. And I was not a huge Johnny Cash fan. I just kind of started listening to him, but my dad really liked Johnny Cash. And I don't know what the heck I just sorry. But I saw this and I'm watching it, and literally tears were in my eyes watching this. Like, it just hit me on this emotional level that I was not prepared for.
Yeah.
And showed it to my dad, and he was kind of like in the same spot. Like, it kind of got, it was very dusty in that room.
Yeah.
And it is one of those things, and thank God, there's a lot of people who, there's a lot of opinions on Rick Rubin these days. He just released a book, and there's a lot of folks who are like, this is basically just general advice packaged in Rick Rubin's woo-woo sort of thing. Whatever. We got the Beastie Boys, and we also got Johnny Cash's American recordings. Like, I think there's 4, maybe 5 albums of Johnny Cash material we probably wouldn't have gotten had it not been for Rick Rubin. So just for having B-Boys and these albums, like, Rick don't have to do anything else. Like, he's, to that's enough for me to be like, this guy knows a thing or two. But yeah, no, such a great song. Such a great song. The only thing is it's been overused in movie trailers over the past like decade. But nothing will ever top this in terms of gravitas.
Yeah.
For a singer, especially considering, I mean, it wasn't that long, after this that June Carter passed and she's in the video.
Yep.
And then not too long after that Johnny passed. So
yeah,
yeesh. I mean, as a way to go out,
it's heavy. It's heavy. Well, and again, and not, I think a year later, it was let me check that. Oops. That's not what I wanted.
Because I mean, in those American recordings, he covered a bunch of stuff and covered it well. Like he does a cover of U2's One.
2 years later, Walk the Line comes out, which is about his life. And if you know Johnny Cash's life, like that's what I mean. Johnny Cash, I've talked about this in past episodes. My grandfather was a huge Johnny Cash fan, and so that he's always been kind of a touchstone for me when it comes to my grandfather, and I've always enjoyed Johnny Cash's music. But when I saw, I just remember watching that and knowing his story and just like, what a appropriate song, to kind of do a cover of, and in his older voice and in his frail state, be able to communicate the emotion of just a life lived and a life lived with mistakes and with learnings. And that like, that's what I took from it, was just the lament of an older man who is looking back on his life, probably with some regret, but also with some, peace as to what he's become, and I think Johnny just does a phenomenal job with it. Apologies for going on and on. I know we have a special guest in the room.
No, and as typical in our family, Kaylin entered with a belch, and I'm like, Tim's having this very emotional discussion about Johnny Cash, and Kaylin was saying,
and we got a Homer Simpson.
It's in the DNA, folks. What are your
brand
thoughts?
Brand loyal.
What are your thoughts, Kaylin, on Mr. Johnny Cash?
I'm not sure. I haven't listened. Or no. Yeah, he's a musician, right?
You have not done your job as a parent, my friend.
I'm gonna be adjusting my will tomorrow.
What did she say?
Say that again.
Not like you have much to give away.
Oh.
Yeah, that sarcasm is strong in our family line. All right, do we have
the sarcasm flow?
I've got you making jokes. I've got Tim making jokes. I don't know what any of you said. Do we have anything for Kaylin's comedy corner today?
That was my big piece of comedy.
The burp?
Yes. No, the like making fun of you.
Oh, jeez.
And then making fun of myself.
No Star Wars humor?
And then also just standing there watching Tim go off talking to you, and then just thinking like, oh wow, his head looks like a really shiny bowling ball.
I do spend some time getting that shine, that sheen, baby.
You need to put a little talcum on there and knock that down a little.
Nah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like having a luminosity of 1.0, so.
What is going on here? What is happening?
Uncle Todd is caught in the middle.
A poorly aged golf ball, maybe.
No, I've been called worse.
By me.
Fair enough.
All right, are you heading to bed?
Sure.
Sure, if I have to.
Yeah, basically.
What else are you going to do? Oh my gosh, you've already read and written.
I can do more.
I know, but you also need to sleep because there's this little thing called school.
Oh my goodness, right. Which I'll be done with.
Should I
soon.
prepare a Star Wars Red 5 next time for her to do? Since
you just close your mouth, sir. All right, so you're. I don't know. That's fine. You don't need to know.
Tell her.
Tim, I'm not telling her anything.
Come on.
No, it's not. It's not like he's cussing.
No, it's if she doesn't have a joke, I thought I could do a couple
Could
trivia
you stop
questions. with
waving
her.
your bourbon bottle in front of my daughter, please? My goodness.
He's like one of those drunk uncles you meet at really family gatherings. That one crazy drunk uncle that only shows up to one family gathering per year.
Ah, all right. I offered to do something nice.
How are we feeling about Kalen's Comedy Corner now, Tim?
I'm fine with it.
Oh, okay,
I'm fine with it.
All right, so you going to bed?
Yes.
All right, good night. Sleep tight. Sweet dreams. Parting is such sweet, sweet sorrow. All right, don't stay up too late reading, please. I'm sure you'll figure it out. All right, good night. Love you. I don't know. Write it down.
Oh, I found my old ID card. So, we're good.
Okay, well, the new one is in my coat pocket.
The one that was in your car, that was the brand new one I got on Friday. And then I couldn't find it today. And I was like, oh, crap, I just bought that. And then I found the old one, like my original ID card. And I've gotten 3, mind you.
Okay.
Family discussions.
Okay. Well, I've got the new one, so you can have that one as well. So you have a complete set.
It's
Okay.
8:58, and you're watching Perspectives.
I know you're missing out on half of this conversation because I'm too lazy to take the microphone out. All right. Good night. Love you. Sweet dreams, dear child.
Anyone ever tell you you look like Kermit the Frog?
No, but thank you.
Was it meant to be a compliment?
I just love no matter what time of year it is, she comes in just completely covered in a blanket. It's really funny.
Just a piece of honesty. Some people look like they were handcrafted and especially me.
Your daughter.
Look like they were made in a Toys R Us factory. And it's okay. We've all had our lot.
Are you hearing any of this?
I can't. No, I can't hear any of it because she's so far away.
Love you too. She said, I look like Kermit the Frog, and that some of us look like we have been sculpted by fine sculptors, and others look like we've been thrown together at Toys R Us.
Well, I think we clearly got Kalen's emo corner.
I'm paying for college, by the way.
Lashing out left and right at all of us here. All a bunch of sickos.
Actually, something totally off topic, but
Yes, sir.
I noticed this on the CM Punk Instagram feed today. He posted something about he had like the old school like DVD or CD wallets, like the big old folder that used to have like 4 on each side. On
Yes.
And it was SMW and then a date. And I was like,
Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
This mofo is watching Smoky Mountain Wrestling reruns.
Dang.
I was like, oh my God.
He's old school, baby.
Uncle Corny somewhere is like.
Uncle Corny's promotion.
Yes.
Which, by the way, apparently he went up one side and down the other. Dwayne Johnson for his ridiculous performance on NXT last week. Which I need to listen to that rant because
yeah, me too.
Apparently it's classic and it's correct. So because it sounds like Dwayne showed up unprepared and caught himself halfway through a promo, basically saying, "Hey, last night was where all the stars are, and tonight is." Oh, I shouldn't say this.
Wouldn't give a cripple crab a crutch.
And Cornette's just like, at least send the guy out with 1 or 2 things to say. Don't let him go out there like that, because clearly he wasn't thinking. It was just like,
He had too much of his tequila.
oh, probably.
Oh my gosh, where are we? Oh, I'm at number 2.
Yeah, I was going through my heartfelt, recollection of Johnny Cash before.
Okay, tone it down. It's not like you knew the man.
Everything went off the rails. Hey, look, man, he was a friend of my. No, not a friend of my grandfather's.
Okay.
He was. My grandfather was a fan.
Okay. My next one is With a Little Help from My Friends, recorded by Joe Cocker from his 1969 album of the same name. This also served as the theme song for the Wonder Years, was a centerpiece of his Woodstock performance, and also his Mad Dogs and Englishmen album, which was an entire tour that was like this incredibly nutso traveling circus of a band. Originally written by the Beatles, and from their 1967 Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, sung by Ringo. It's very easy to say that these songs are very different, but you really have to listen to them to understand how much different. Because one is, "What would you do if I sang out of tune?" And the other is not that.
Yeah.
And involves screaming. Oh my gosh. When I think of covers and like how a cover can improve and on and eclipse the original, this is really one of the first ones that come to mind. The energy that comes out of this version from Joe Cocker is one of the reasons why I am a huge fan of Joe Cocker and his music and his singing and the way that he just takes a song, and once he's done it, it's like that version is so uniquely him because of his, again, much like Eddie Van Halen's guitar, Joe Cocker's voice and the way that he sings a song. And I understand there's probably people, producers and band leaders and all that, helping him craft these and all that. Fine, whatever. But his voice is the defining feature of his covers of songs. And this is a dude who's done tons of covers. Several of the Beatles. His cover of She Came In Through the Bathroom Window is also freaking phenomenal. But this song to me is one of those songs that it typifies that, because it is literally, it feels like you're in the middle of a slow moving explosion as this song is happening. Like it just builds and builds. It is one of those things where you're like, you could imagine Freddie Mercury love this song because of kind of the operaticness of it. You could probably bet that Freddie was like, it might not be my thing, but darling, I love the passion. It is just one of those examples of how a cover can really just reinvent a song and give it so much of a different life. And I love this song, and I'm lucky enough I get to sing it every so often, and man, it is friggin' fun every single time. Get the tingles up the spine. I won't do the Dwayne Johnson goosebumps, because apparently Dwayne, but yeah, good stuff.
Holds the patent on that? Is that what Dwayne does?
Yeah, he better not. He probably thinks he does, but he doesn't. What do you got for your number one, sir?
My number one was Jimi Hendrix, All Along the Watchtower, 1968. Which, again, is kind of like your number three with respect, being so close to the original. This was originally recorded by Bob Dylan for his 1967 album, John Wesley Harding. Is that right? I guess.
I think so.
But no, this is one that I've always enjoyed and made more so special by its inclusion in the anchor, the foundation, if you will, of the show.
If you will.
Battlestar Galactica, especially the Bear McCreary cover of this as well, All Along the Watchtower, was so instrumental to that show, and became a touchstone, if you will, of what that show kind of pivoted on from season 3 into season 4. And so, yeah, I picked this one not just because of its BSG inclusion, but Jimi Hendrix's version. I don't want to say it outdoes. It's not to the level of what Johnny Cash did with "Hurt," but it is a classic Hendrix song. And while I'm sure many will relate that song to its originator, I do think Hendrix has kind of done his own version of it and done it to the nth degree.
I think there's a lot of people who don't realize this is a cover.
Oh, okay.
I think there is a healthy amount of people who, because, man, I mean, Hendrix is another dude who, the guitar sound, of course, and just what he did, where he could kind of run the gamut of emotion and tones and colors and shapes and all that of what he would do in this song. Like it's the very beginning, like you get once you get a dun 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 dun,
Oh,
and you
yeah.
get into that initial electric guitar line where it's like that boo 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 boo, boo, it is so clear.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he gets into the solo, then you start getting kind of, feedback and all in a lot of the stuff you think of Hendrix. But I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of Hendrix came from like sometimes like the that what am I trying to think of, the kind of the opposites. I'm losing my vocabulary, but yeah, see, you're doing it too because I just
I'm not sure where you're going. So,
but in terms of like having the clear tone as opposed to the ultra distortion.
reverb.
Well, no, I'm just talking
Dynamics.
about like, the contrast between those. That's
Contrast.
What
Okay.
contrast.
Okay.
And then just the way that he sings it.
Mm.
He had a very distinct vocal styling
Mhm.
and phrasing. And to me, I gotta say, like, Jimi Hendrix's version of this is superior in most every way to the Bob Dylan version. The only thing that I think Bob Dylan gets the weight of for this is, I mean, he wrote the songs. I mean, you got to give him credit for that for sure. But I think Hendrix actually, in many ways, there was a there was a guy I used to get a chance to play with in a band, and he said just because someone wrote it doesn't mean they know how it goes. Which I think can be true. Like, I think someone can write a song and they take it as far as they can, and then someone else takes it and it's like, oh, I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah.
I feel like Hendrix took the song and it's like, this is how it ought to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you could catch, Bob in a moment of lucidity and somewhat humility, which I don't know how many of those Bob has, but he probably would be like, yeah, he took it 5 steps further than I could.
Yeah.
To me, it is the definitive version, even though I really appreciate the U2 version of it. This is, I think, really the definitive version of that song.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's a cover just makes it kind of that much, more funny to me. But then again, it matches up with my number one.
Indeed. Which is?
What's so funny about Peace, Love, and Understanding, as recorded by Elvis Costello in the Attractions.
Nice.
This is a cover of a song by Nick Lowe. Well, it's the song by Nick Lowe. And it was for his 1974 album with his band Brinsley Schwarz. The funny part was Nick was actually the producer for the 1979 Armed Forces album that for Elvis Costello and the Attractions. The other bit of funniness was this song was only included on the U.S. version of Armed Forces. So when I was looking at this originally, I'm like, well, wait a minute, it's on Armed Forces. I know that because I've seen the album cover. It's fairly distinctive. And I'm like, but it's not listed on the Wikipedia page. It's like, oh, because they left off, I think it's Sunday's Best was left off, and then they included this song on the U.S. version. So that's kind of where it came about, and then it's been included since then. Now that CD and tape and LP space does not matter anymore. It's like, yeah, this song can, this album can have as many songs as possible. But to me, this song is just, this is the definitive version of the song. Elvis's version is the definitive version of the song. And I've heard the Nick Lowe version, and it's nice and it's beautiful. And I actually had a chance to hear Nick Lowe and Elvis perform this together when I saw Elvis live this past summer, last year, I think it was. And Nick Lowe's band opened for Elvis, and then he came out and did a couple of songs, and this was one of them. And they kind of, in a very odd way, split the difference between their versions. Like, literally, it felt like they were like, okay, your version is at this BPM, my version is at this BPM. Here's the middle ground between that, and we're going to do that. And it was an interesting artifact, but there was part of me that was like, no, I want the very frenetic, in your face Elvis Costello version, because I love, in a way, like this, I love the lyrics, so I love the Nick Lowe part of it. As I walk on in this wicked world, like, all of, because there is like this, it feels very much like it's a song that is timeless, because there's always going to be like, there's a lot of crap going on in this world, and there's a lot of, this wicked world and all the stuff that's going on. What's so funny about Peace, Love, and Understanding? But there is, like, to me, there's always this bit of hope, and maybe that comes from the Elvis performance. like the energy behind it. It's almost like this in your face, like I'm going to be optimistic no matter what, even though everything sucks. I refuse to be as cynical as I could be, and I'm going to be, I'm going to spit in your face, but it's like a saliva of optimism.
Yeah.
Not where I would want to go with that. But anyways, I just love that kind of energy that's like, I'm going to be optimistic in spite of it, almost in opposition to your negativity. Just love this song. Love hearing Elvis perform it. There's a great live version of it where I think it's the Bangles are doing like backup vocals for him. There's like go-go dancers in a cage. It's bat spit. I think Elvis is wearing like a leopard fur hat. It's bat spit insane, but it's glorious at the same time.
Nice.
But yeah, that is probably my favorite cover of all time.
Very nice.
Can't get enough of it. Well, there you have it, sir. Our purely objective.
Yes.
This is the greatest.
It is best in the world.
Yeah.
As
not subjective at all.
As declared by the fantasy football best in the world. So
oh God. On that note, I'm gonna take another 30-second time out and calm down. I need to do my Buford T justice.
Cleanse my palate, if you will.
And empty my bladder. So I'll be back.
One eternity later.
All right, sir. So what do you have for And Another Thing this episode? A suggestion for our listeners / viewers.
I don't know. What do I have for And? Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry, I had to remind myself. I
have to scroll, sir.
I was very good about getting all my content completed on Sunday. So it's been a couple days. I haven't looked at it.
Mazel tov.
But hey, this And Another Thing was damn near a year in the making, ladies and gentlemen. The man they call Tim.
Actually, yeah, you punted this a bunch of times.
As you have probably heard Uncle Todd describe, he is a voracious reader, and the man they call Tim tries to keep up where he can. Last year, 2024, was not a banner year for me in reading. I basically read this book for pretty much the entire year, on and off. I just couldn't seem to get into a rhythm.
Well, yeah.
And finally, over my 2-week holiday break, said, damn it, I am going to finish this bad boy. And I got to say, honestly, it is not an indictment of the book itself. It is an indictment of my lack of discipline when it comes to the reading.
Yeah, dude. Sometimes you just, it is tough to get into a rhythm reading sometimes. Sometimes it stops and starts, and sometimes you just kind of consistently.
There was a time when I read. So my when I go downtown, my schedule is I'm usually up and dressed and ready, by like 5:15 in the morning, and I sit and I read. Or the intent was, do my Wordle, play a game, then I read for about 20 minutes. Then I get the car, that I'm taking to the train station ready, warmed up because it's winter here, and off I go. Last year, I was very, very slack in that, and I did not read when I should have read.
Slacker.
Indeed. So it is not an indictment of the book, but the book that I've been talking about for the last 5 minutes and have not named is Making It So, a memoir by Patrick Stewart. And I highly recommend this book. The book is well written. It is very, very intriguing, very compelling to read, about his journey from poverty to a theater school, to kind of what would be considered theater college, to working in the Royal Shakespeare Theater in England, and eventually his ascent into television, movies, and then into television as Captain Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek: The Next Generation. It is a very honest memoir. He gets into and Patrick Stewart has been very outspoken about women abuse and that sort of thing, because of what his father, what he understands it, his father's responsibility was in terms of how he treated his mother and his brother. He is very open about that. He is very open as well about, quite honestly, a few infidelities later in his life. And it does so in a way that is respectful and in a lot of, and what I feel is responsive. He takes responsibility for his part in all of that. It's a very honest memoir, and but yeah, just overall, just a fascinating life. Really found his journey very interesting. I was sharing with my wife some of what I was reading about. It's funny, like somewhere about the quarter mark in the book, he gets into how, like, he has a little blurb about just how much he despises Margaret Thatcher because apparently she, no, in a
He's
serious
not
way,
alone.
because she impacted the way they used to fund the arts in England. And he does so because he was a huge beneficiary of that. He was able to go to a theater school. He completed to some degree, I guess, high school, and then went to a 2 or 3 year school, and then went to another one. But it was all funded through scholarships and through these art programs they had in England, because England at that time very heavily invested in the arts. And so he clearly is very passionate about that, because I think without that, he realizes his life would not have come together the way that it did. And it's really interesting to kind of, he doesn't harp on this, but just as you read it and you kind of piece things together, he seemed to have put together a pretty stable life for himself working for the Royal Shakespearean Theatre, when he was a part of that. He was there for about 14, 15 years. And, he just, as he writes, he kind of writes about how he and his wife at the time, his first wife, were just able to kind of, live the way that they wanted to live. And that, he wasn't rich at that point in time from what I could tell, but he just had a stable life. It seemed like you could do that in the theater, which quite honestly is not what I equate these days to being in the theater. It feels like it's kind of a struggling artist sort of thing until you can get into either Broadway or television or movies. And so,
even then, it can be very hand to mouth, dude.
Yeah. So it was just fascinating to read about. And, ironically, he talks about his time on Next Generation, but it's not like the book is focused on that. It's the latter part. It's kind of later in his career. He's in his 40s at that point, which is really remarkable. I mean, he comes to be the big star that he is very late, kind of later in his career. And it comes, at a time when probably his best years in some ways are behind him. But, he talks about just, the experience of that, and just the camaraderie and familial nature of he and the cast. He tells a great story, and Brent Spiner tells this story and does a great Picard impression as well. When,
oh my gosh,
in season 1, when basically Patrick Stewart like dresses down the entire cast because they're goofing off and unprofessional, and he writes about this, and he's like, and he admits, I was the one in the wrong. But at the time, this is what I felt passionate about. This is what I felt we should be doing. And then the story Brent Spiner tells is he dresses us all down. And then when they do the episode where it's Tasha Yar's funeral, he's the one doing "The Hills Are Alive" with the sound of music, doing this whole thing. And like, oh, okay. And he's like, that's when Patrick became one of us. So it's just such a great book. And I would just say, if you're looking for, a memoir kind of book to read about someone, he just has a fascinating life, and just seems like a really really good person. But like I said, it's kind of toward the later parts of the book where he makes some mistakes, and he takes ownership of it, and he talks, he writes quite frequently about, I get the sense he's still estranged from his daughter to some degree because of the infidelities that led to his original marriage falling apart. And so no, I just it was a very insightful and interesting look into a very interesting man's life, and I would highly recommend it. So, Making It So, a memoir by Patrick Stewart.
Very nice, sir.
What about you, sir? What is yours?
I came across this book last week.
We're both reading.
Week before?
Can we call ourselves idiots at this point if we're both reading?
Yes, you can still be an idiot and read. Trust me, I've managed to do that for decades now. But I found this one a couple weeks ago, and it was intriguing to me on a couple different fronts.
Yes.
The book itself is Alien 3, the unproduced screenplay by William Gibson, by Pat Cadigan, which is very confusing. I will explain. So Alien 3, if you have watched the movie, I believe David Lynch was the director. And when they have gone back and done the director's cut series for the Alien movies, I believe at one point they did a box set back when that was a thing. Like, hey kids, back in the day, we used to have movies on these things called DVDs, and you'd have to get them, and they'd be in a box. And every so often, they'd put a whole bunch of them together and be a box set. I know, it's weird. David Lynch was shut out of the editing room for his movie, and therefore has had a very sour taste in his mouth about Alien 3. And in fact, when they invited him back to basically say, hey, you can do whatever you want, he still was like, F you, no, I'm not. And so they essentially had to go back and kind of use some of his notes to compile a director's cut. And every other director came back except him. So the making of Alien 3 was plagued with a lot of politicking and other shenanigans. However, the original screenplay that was written by William Gibson, fairly prolific or well-known author, is one of those things of Hollywood history that it only gains legend more and more as it goes along. It's one of the most famous movies that was never made, along with, I forget what the guy's name is, but the original version of Dune that was going to be released, and it was this dude who had these ideas. Pink Floyd was going to do the soundtrack. Salvador Dali, the artist who did the Melting Clocks, he was going to play the Emperor. Like, it was bat spit insane. And there's a great documentary on it. I think it's on Netflix. Maybe.
When you're done, I actually have a Patrick Stewart tie-in to David Lynch from Dune.
Oh,
from
well,
this
yeah,
book.
because he was in Dune.
Yes, but go ahead, finish your story, and then I'll tell this one.
So, when I first tried my hand at screenwriting, one of the things that was recommended was read screenplays. Go figure. So I started downloading a bunch of screenplays, and there was a few people who had like these treasure troves of screenplays. And I heard about Aliens 3, like oh my gosh, the original William Gibson, screenplay is, mind blowing and all this. And I was like, okay. And I found it in one of these massive downloads that I had done. However, I did not have like the first draft. I had I think it was a draft later on. So there was some changes made, but it's so different from the movie. They're not even close. And I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to see this movie. Like, this would have been incredible. I also see there's reasons why it didn't get made.
Yeah.
Just from a feasibility, budget, and all that. But I mean, oh my gosh, it was incredible. And so I'm nosing around a bookstore and I saw this and I'm like, well, a novelization of this, screenplay that I kind of read a later version of it, but this is okay, this is the OG, we're gonna mainline this thing. Okay, fine. I've got a couple bucks in my pocket. Let me get this thing. So I'm about I want to say I'm about 2/3 of the way through, and oh my gosh, this is kind of nuts. So in this version, Hicks does not die. Hicks continues on. Newt does not die. She continues on. Bishop does not die. He's resurrected in this. The weird thing is that 2/3 of the way through, and Ripley has been in a coma the entire time, which is the reason why I'm thinking that this movie did not get made, unless this was an original draft that they showed to Sigourney Weaver when she was asking for too much money. It's like, all right, well, write your ass out of this. She is literally in a coma this entire time. It's weird. Not to spoil things, but I mean, there's a whole lot of other stuff going on. That is not a tremendous spoiler. I don't know how it turns out. So, but it is bizarre, dude. Pat Cadigan apparently is a Hugo Award-winning, author, so very well regarded in the sci-fi community. It's a fun read, and it is wild. And yeah, I have not reached the end of it, so maybe this thing will disappoint me, but I don't think it will. I think it's gonna land pretty well and be just this weird sort of nugget of history. But yeah, if you have a chance to drop by your library, there'll be a link, of course, in the show notes to buy it through Bookshop, which helps because you can support local bookstores in your area through Bookshop. But yeah, it's worth a read, man, if you are at all interested in these movies.
Do you mind finding a link to Patrick Stewart's book from that bookshop? Because unfortunately, the link I provided is to the big monster Amazon. So
yes, I can do that, sir.
Thank you.
I can.
Thank you.
But yeah, it is well worth a read if you're at all interested in this. For all those people who are like very jarred by the shift from Aliens to Alien 3, because Aliens is kind of like, the Jim Cameron movie is like one of the most perfect action movies ever made, to then like, oh, there's no guns. Like what the frack is going on? This makes total sense as a sequel to Aliens. It is very much like,
nice,
this is the next step, and it goes even more crazy. So yeah, definitely check it out if you have the time and the means. So what is your David Lynch Patrick Stewart tie-in?
So Patrick Stewart in his book writes about his experience, on Dune, and
was he Duncan, Idaho?
No, he was Gurney.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he describes how, his agent contacts him, says, hey, they want you on this movie Dune. You're playing this character. He's like, all right. So he flies to Mexico because that's where they were filming it apparently. And he goes to meet David Lynch for the first time. They're meeting in his hotel suite or something like that. And it's him and Kyle MacLachlan and a few of the other characters, a few of the other actors. And he walks in and he goes to, shake David Lynch's hand. He can already sense there's something weird between them. And David Lynch is very standoffish with him, and it's just very strange. And he talks about how through most of the filming, David Lynch is very, very personable with everyone. But when it comes to him, he's just, again, standoffish. He's not sure why. And he knows someone who kind of worked closely with Lynch, and as they're getting to the end of filming and stuff like that, he's talking to this person. He's like, what is the issue with Lynch? Like, he's like, I just don't understand. He's very cold. I don't, but he's okay with everyone else. Well, come to find out that apparently when David Lynch wanted to cast Patrick Stewart as Gurney, he had taken in a play that Stewart was performing at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre, where he had, basically a wig that was very very masculine hair, and so he thought he was getting this mountain of a man sort of thing, and then he shows up bald as a cue ball. He's like, and Lynch realizes he can't get out of it, and he's I am stuck with this as Gurney, and it's like just literally living with the guilt of that decision throughout the entire filming was just a great story.
Which is hilarious when you consider all the stuff that they went through with with TNG, where they fitted him with the hairpiece.
Yes.
Which it was it's so much worse.
Now,
oh God, thank God that didn't make it.
He did say eventually they talked and were able to kind of get a little bit of a rapport going once they kind of realized the situation. But it was really funny the way he describes, like, yeah, he thought he was going to get this very hairy, long-haired individual, not realizing I was wearing a wig, and it was all part of the.
He thought he was getting a swarthy individual rather than an Earl Grey tea.
I can only imagine the look on his face, like, oh shoot, this is what I can't do anything. It's like, he's under contract. We got to run with it. This is my Gurney. Good God Almighty, he looks like he's 60.
Yeah. So, yeah, that is kind of the way it works. Oh my gosh, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
sounds about right.
Although I got to say, in my situation, I actually shared a month ago with a coworker much younger than I that I will be turning the big 50 this year.
You will, sir.
I will. This is 5 decades of excellence, and
it is, yes,
best in the world. But I shared this with them, and they look at me and they're like, no, and I'm like, yeah, like, you don't look like you're 50. I'm like, thank you very much. I appreciate the compliment.
And the unfinished part is, you look 60.
He got me.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
On that fine note.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to wrap this sucker up in a nice, neat bow.
As Jake the Snake would say.
Short-armed clothesline.
Short-arm clothesline right into the DDT.
Somebody needs to bring that back. And you know what? You know who would be good at that? LA Knight.
He was. Yeah.
That'd be great. Anyways, time for us to bring this to a close. Thank you to all the members of the Free Range Idiocy congregation who have joined us here to read from the Holy Scriptures of Idiocy. We do so appreciate you all. If you'd like to join the congregation, it's very simple. There's no collection plate. There's no invocation. There is no blood oath. None of that. You can just sign up by just subscribing to the podcast. That's it. It's a low bar of entry because we can't jump for squat. So what you do is go to freerangeidiocy.com. You can find all of our episodes there. You can download them one by one. You can get them all at once. You can subscribe to the Podbean app if you say to yourself, I got way too many apps in my life. Well, then just find us on an app that you happen to like. We're on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. We're on... I always feel bad pimping Spotify because they pay like everybody jack squat, but we're there. We're on Pandora. We're on, honestly, prefer you to go to Podbean or Apple Podcasts. I'm just being honest. A little snug. We're on Pandora. We're on Amazon. We're on all of those. There's no good corporations, but hey, we're out there. So just find us. We appreciate all of you subscribing that way. You can also find us on the YouTubes. You have a full 1080p HD video there. You can watch us, as thrilling as that is. Somewhere out there, somebody's got a free-range idiocy kink. I mean, isn't that the way this whole world works? That if something's weird enough, it will be a thing.
Do we still have listeners in Ireland? We used to have listeners, worldwide.
We might. During your outro, I'll see what the latest stats are. So you can also find us on the social medias. We are on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We are on the YouTubes. All of those are at Free Range Idiocy. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, offers of outright bribery or sponsorship, I mean, I'm above such things. But Tim, he'll pimp himself out for pennies on the
You got a whole portfolio going, baby. It's just...
Send all of those to Tim at freerangeidiocy.com. He will get back to you ASAP, if not sooner. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to turn this show over, for good or for ill, to the least idiotic of the two idiots who run this show. That would be the man they call Tim. Not before I ask the second most important question in all of human history. The first, of course, being what is hip. The second being, what in the high holy hell did we learn this week, sir?
Never fear. I have a list. The list! We have learned the following, my friend.
What was I going to look up, by the way? I forgot.
You're going to look up our listenership numbers across the world.
Thank you for that reminder.
You are welcome. We have learned the following. We have learned that Uncle Todd and his crew of ne'er-do-wells left the Whittemore Center standing, but definitely unleashed their brand of funk, soul, and just highfalutin music at the Whittemore Center for the hockey game.
Highfalutin it was, but hey.
Well, I thought there was a flute in there somewhere, no?
There was a flautist, yes.
All right. just want to make sure.
Oh, very interesting here, by the way.
Yes.
Over the last 3 months, the top, let's see.
Turkey?
No, United States is the top. Singapore comes in next with 25% of our listenership. Brazil, Canada with almost 4%. United Kingdom with about 1%. Sweden with just about 1%. Bangladesh, just under 1%. Australia and Iceland, Germany, France, Russia with 0.25%, Slovakia with 0.25%. I mean, we're worldwide.
What about Greenland? I hear that's a popular place nowadays. All right, moving right along. We've also learned.
Are they including that in U.S. statistics already?
Oh my God! We have also learned Monday Netflix Raw week 2. Another rousing success with the debut of Penta fighting Chad Gable.
Actually,
and
what'd you think about Karrion Kross? The evolution of Karrion.
Oh, I love Karrion Kross right now. I think his character's great. It's like,
we have a problem.
Yeah, we have a problem? I don't think so. I'm out of here, man. I love it. I love it. Poor Miz is like turned. I mean, he's always made lemonade out of lemons. But this, I feel like he's just kind of, I don't know, just treading water at this point, you know?
Well, I mean, this is the part in your career where you do tread water and just hope that eventually the money is going to come to you.
Fair enough. But WWE putting out another great episode of Monday Netflix Raw. Looking forward to the Royal Rumble. We will, of course, be having a review show. I believe we should also have a predictions show as well. We should have some Borgman on the line, my friend.
Well, dude, I just realized we've got a Saturday Night's Main Event between now and the Rumble.
Ooh.
I
think Saturday Night's Main Event we'll just do a review on. We won't do a predictions, but I think for Rumble we got to do predictions because it is just,
as my dad would say, we got a shit pot full of wrestling coming up.
Amen and amen. We've also learned that Bob Zemeckis would have preferred to cut the girlfriend out of the ending, and I think that probably would have been the best for all of us because she really didn't serve a purpose in that second movie other than to just say, hey.
Well,
so
it is tough when you have that loose end where you're like,
I just love they had no idea there were going to be sequels, but they end the movie with "to be continued." If that isn't the best troll in the world, I don't know what is.
It is like this very weird sort of optimism, like, sure, this could be a sequel.
Why not? Who's going to remember? It's like, oh crap, people are watching this. So there we go. All right, and we've also learned that Uncle Todd, definitely the more musically inclined and musically sensible of the two of us, with some fine cover song picks. Man, they called him a little more pop culture centric and just whatever was on the radio. Yeah, thank you very much. But I did sneak in a couple of Rush picks there, and no one can dispute the Johnny Cash pick. I'm sorry, it is legit through and through. Johnny Cash once again, just showing us how it's done. With all that being said, as we like to close things out here on the range, be safe, be healthy, be kind, be good to one another. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. The range is closed. So, see ya.
I like a Mussolini. It's like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking.
I beg your pardon, what did you say?
Damn!
You're such a disappointing pair. I prayed so hard for you. Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
So say we all. So say we all.
Bingo. Got to end with Uncle Corny. At 2:22, by the way, and about 20 of this is going to get cut, so about 2 hours.
You obviously don't know how time works, do you, sir?
You were in the bathroom for about 15 of it, so,
I was not in the bathroom for 15.
Yeah, I've been sitting here solid as a rock. You've taken 3 bathroom breaks, sir.
I am very well hydrated, I'll have you know. I had a training session today.
Oh, we have also learned the man they called him Luminosity 1.0 right here, baby.
Yeah.
Not disputing that by a long shot.
Jeez.
So there you have it.
You know what? We're going to end things a little differently this week.
Oh, my. There we go. All right. We'll take it.
Glorious. No, I won't give in till I'm victorious. And I will defend.
There it is. Well done, sir. Are you sitting on a stool where you can spin like that or something?
No, I won't give in till I'm victorious. And I will defend, and I'll do marvelous. No, I won't give in, oh so glorious.
Now get the hell out of here!